Welcome to the Indy.net Consortium. Happy to have you here. We're brought to you by Theris. Yay, Theris! 1150 Academy, Ozcode, and Launch Fishers. 1150 Academy and Launch Fishers. Funny thing is, that's usually, they help us out a lot when we meet in person. Haven't been able to do that for almost a year now. But still, they are sponsors. Yay, thanks to them. Theris would normally bring pizza. Yay. Thank you, Theris. And then Ozcode, well, they provide a license. So they could do that whether we're virtual or not. But thanks to all of our sponsors, they're quite valued. Oh, we're not doing lightning talks. We're doing a fishbowl discussion, and for some reason I did not update this. Tonight, we will not be talking about lessons learned working virtually. We will be talking about yeah, can you tell it's been a long day? We'll be talking about starting a project. We are also brought to you by the .NET Foundation. If you haven't checked out the .NET Foundation, please do. They sponsor the .NET Foundation Virtual User Group, which is very cool. They bring basically meetups / user groups, but really user groups these days are effectively meetups from around the globe to a central location where it's all posted. So great initiative, very excited to be a part of that. Yay. Let me stop presenting this, if I can. Where's that option for me to stop sharing? It's not letting me stop sharing. Did I stop sharing? Is it still sharing or is it just showing my video?
Just showing video.
Yep. Oh, good. Okay. It stopped sharing automatically. I did not click cancel. So, all right. Yay. So tonight's conversation is about how do you start a project? It's a fireside chat, meaning we can all talk about this and go over how we individually try this. But what really got me thinking about this topic was a couple days ago, I was talking to a college student that I've known for a few years. I met him while he was in college, and he's like, "Hey, I want to become a freelancer. Just get experience." And I'm like, "Well, that's great." And something he brought up was, "Hey, there's a company I know that it's a pizza shop, and they want to know if I would build an app for them and a website." And I'm like, wait. He goes, "Well, how should I start?" I'm like, "Well, hold up. First of all, identify your customer's needs. Building an app and a website for a pizza shop actually isn't, you doing that is not the right idea for your customer, because you could go to like a Wix, which has an entire order management system geared towards restaurants. It's just included if you add the service. And I think Wix can actually spin up an app for you too if you pay them. All professionally designed and takes care of everything. And you're not on the hook for doing any work. You're just there connecting them to the right service. And he's like, "I had no idea." And I said, "Well, here's the thing. Oftentimes, you being a software engineer does not mean that you have to write the software. Oftentimes, it's your knowledge that you can tap into about the services and that are out there and get a better solution into your customers' hands. And you could charge them for your time in order to get that." Now, on the flip side of that, that doesn't mean that you can't be a contractor. And keeping Theris in mind, something he may want to do, since I think he's like 21. You could go work for a consulting firm, and you get to see this from beginning to end. You get to see the creation of a project to the shipping of it and the long-term maintenance. But it would also teach you about specification design, because before you work on anything, you should have a specification. It's really easy, I guess, when you're young to say, "Well, you know what? That sounds like good money if I build an app for someone." And the conversation usually goes like this. Hey, I have a blah, 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 blah. You're a programmer, right? Yeah. Well, you could probably build something like whatever I'm looking for real quick. And in your mind, I think when you're young, it's, oh, sweet, that'd be a great opportunity. I would love to do that. And wow, $1,000 sounds like a lot of money. But what does someone like that usually say first? They say yes, but they have no specification. They don't know what the customer wants. The customer right now is thinking, I'm going to have Pizza Hut's website and app, or Papa John's solution with point of sale and everything. And you're thinking nothing like that. You're just thinking it's a cool project.
$4,000.
Yeah. And these people will get mad at you because they have $150,000 to $200,000 project in their head because they think that's easy and don't realize how much it costs. But they think just like if they look at their auto mechanic, well, you're an auto mechanic, you'll find my problem and fix it. That you'll be able to fix that in 30 minutes, maybe even 15 if you're really good. And then they're surprised when the bill for like $1,200 comes from the mechanic, right? And they're like, I'm not going to pay this. And so that was something that started me thinking about, wow, it would be good to have a conversation about that. We can't really do lightning talk so much with the .NET Consortium virtually. It's kind of hard to manage like who can talk, etc., and who's available right after the first of the year even. And there's a lot going on today, so I imagine that would explain why, 90% of the people that RSVP didn't show up. So that's how this topic came to be. So Tim, what do you think? Prentice, Gregory?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to understand the scope of what somebody's wanting before you try to fit them into a solution, whether it be Wix or something off the shelf or custom development.
Yeah, I was trying to explain to him, what about, before you even think about code, you need to have a specification. You need to understand what your customer wants. You don't know what they want. You may have an idea, but until you get it in writing, you really have no agreement, even if you think you know what they want. And that lack of understanding and communication is usually what causes the problem with the relationship. Their understanding of what they want, your understanding of what they want, but you actually never met in the middle to agree on what that you both have a picture in your head of the same thing. Here they're thinking diamond ring. Over here they're thinking a Cracker Jack toy. But you hear, well, it's a ring. And you never went beyond that. And I think that causes, that's what ends up getting you sued. It makes people angry with you. It doesn't get you a reference, especially when you're young.
So I'll say that I'm no stranger to that, especially with all of these government websites that I have to interact with. It's perfect example of developing a product for somebody with minimal guidance and just doing what you want. I know when I went to college, like one of the things they taught us was to go out and conduct surveys with the user and talk to the user and find out what they need and want and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest.
Did you do any of that? What, Prentice?
I said, to be honest, I'll probably just mostly be listening. I will say I'm just transitioning into development. I got a minor. I studied new media at IUPUI, and then I got a minor in computer science and applied computer science. Then I went and got a postbachelorate in software development. Then I went to 1150, and so now
1150.
And so but I spent close to 2 years as a tier 2 software support specialist. Really, I was doing some tier 3 work. And so I've seen all this, but I've never done it. I sat in between analysts and developers, and I've seen the arguments about specifications, and I've seen them go stand over people trying to get use cases and user stories correct. I've seen all these things, but I've never been handed a user story and told that I need to code anything yet. So I really came here to just listen and see what was going on, because in the upcoming months, I plan to get a junior level .NET developer role, hopefully, God willing. So I'm just listening mostly tonight.
Yeah. And, you know, speaking of that, Prentice, and thanks for explaining that, I don't think it hurts to ask for user stories, or at least specifications, or have someone point you to the details about what you're implementing. You know, in a perfect world, you would get highly detailed user stories. But we are far from a perfect world. And many times you'll get something that's just a title in Jira or Azure DevOps or whatever your issue management system is, and it'll have no detail underneath it. And a lot of people code to that, and just they code by the seat of their pants. It's just whatever's there. They figure it out. The problem is if you start writing the code first and you don't know exactly what you're supposed to be building, well, you've spent all that time writing code, and who knows if you wrote support services, implementations of whatever, interfaces / contracts that the application has to follow or implement, all possibly on a false assumption. And
I've actually seen that. Like I said, working those couple of years almost as in software support, I've seen this happen. I've sat in some code reviews. I was part of stand up. So I've seen a lot of this. I just haven't actually worked as a developer yet. So it's still kind of an enigma, because I was so busy. I didn't have time I kind of talked to the developers about what they did, but I didn't have time to actually see it in practice, because I was busy myself doing change control requests and things of that nature. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry about that.
No, I'm not upset at all. It's good feedback. Yeah, so you'll experience it when you get into this. What the day-to-day life of a software engineer is. My role's actually changed, over the years, and this time what I currently do, I don't write software every day. I manage software, but I do find, like, when we're reporting bugs or we're building out new features, whether I put an actual, like, a lot of detail in there, or whether a story has a lot of detail in it or it doesn't, the developer will still go and start work on it. Sometimes much to my chagrin, because if I didn't write that user story and someone else did, I can run into an issue where someone implements something and says, well, you never said I had to do that. And I go and I'm like, well, show me what you're coding against, because this doesn't work the way I would expect. And I go and I look, and there's just a title. But, they ran with it. Like, well, it's kind of like all this other stuff. And that all comes back to that specification. If you don't agree on what the definition of done is, then you'll never get to your definition of done, unless it's by chance, or your definition of done is so loose that you'll accept anything. And sometimes that is the case. Sometimes I have found It's whatever it takes to ship it is done. I've just seen that before, in previous projects that I've been involved with. I'm like, no. We need to ask the customer about this. No, just go write it. And I'm like, no, this seems to have nuance that if we get it wrong, we'll have a problem. Well, we need to ship it. And those are scary words. We need to ship it. Like, that should never be the reason, unless it's a good reason, to go around asking the customer what they want. Because I feel, at least, that the customer appreciates it if you try to clarify with them what exactly it is they're looking for. And if you don't do that, then you'll find out when you don't implement what they asked for, because you ran with an assumption. And as I've heard before, we all know what assume means. It makes an ass out of you and me. It's true. It's true in it, yeah. And then you still don't get paid. Yeah, I don't know.
So I'll go ahead and also, second what was said. I also am not really a software engineer or even a developer. I'm coming up on retirement, 22 years in the military soon, and so I am looking to become a software engineer. I've gone to college. I'm in graduate school right now for that fun stuff, but I'm trying to engage in the community because I feel a lot like, so I have apps in the Windows Store. Well, like one, I say apps, like I have a bunch, but one, and I've learned a lot, but I always feel like I don't know enough. So I'm trying to come to these meetings so I can, learn what I can learn and meet people that can help me to become a better coder.
Sure. Well, two things on that. One, beware of imposter syndrome. You're oftentimes better than you think you are. And two, 1150 has a program, I think, for GIs. So there's a GI bill. There's some like education allowance that you have as a member of the military. And thanks for your service. And I think if you reach out to them, it might even be 100% paid for by that.
I believe so. Some of the veterans I know that were in it took multiple boot camps for free. So you might want to check into it.
Yeah. Talk with Alex.
What was that name again?
Alex, what is it?
Or 1150?
1150. Yeah, go to 1150 ELEVENFIFTY.org.
Okay.
I'm an OG.
I'm
an 1150 OG.
They actually got some money from the CARES Act for this as well. So, yeah.
I mean, I've been looking into the Microsoft Systems Software Academy as well, because that I can also use, and Microsoft will teach me stuff. My fear about doing that and using part of my benefits is that I'll already know a lot of what they want to teach me, and so I'll end up having wasted it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could call 1150 and at least they certify you. I don't know if Microsoft certifies you. That would be good too.
That I don't know.
So, I mean, certifications matter, but what'll matter more will be proof of what you've done. Yeah, I tell folks, and Tim could probably speak to this as well from a recruiting standpoint. A college degree is great, but the problem with a college degree is if that's all you have, you're like everyone else who has a college degree. You have the same set of skills as everyone from that program.
Lovely.
So, if you can't show that for example, you publish an app to the Windows Store.
Mhm.
Well, that might be better. That may be more experience than 75% of the people that graduated from your school. So that puts you in the top 25% because 75% just have a degree
Really?
and never published an app. So they have no idea how to publish an app. They don't know what the process was like. They don't know the distribution details. They don't know terms. They don't know how easy or hard it is to get certified. That all just automatically puts you ahead of anyone who's never done that because it's something else that they don't have to explain to you. And you're already comfortable with publishing an app. So you might also be more willing to try publishing an Android app or an iOS app.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone else might be like, oh, I've never done this before. I'm scared. And there's value in that lack of fear.
I would say in my time there's various levels of skill. There were people there that just took a short class in web development and now they're there, and there's others that have a BS in computer science from Purdue. So it's really, you'll get kind of what you put into it. So and you'll leave with a portfolio of work to show. So if you're more skilled, you can have more polished, more complex projects that you work on, and at the end of the day, you'll have a bigger network. I've tripled my network on LinkedIn since I started the boot camp, and also a lot of people leave with an actual portfolio to show employers, and also you have the career services to work with you to help you get a job as well when it's over. So there are some benefits no matter what skill level you're at.
I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah. So if you can't tell, I like 1150. They got some good people over there, and I used to teach there. So years ago, before they expanded. So yeah, I mean, on my own personal projects, even there, I write out what I'm supposed to build. Like I'll draw it out and be like, okay, here's what I think I need to do, and then go build that. So at least I kind of a contract with myself, because I found myself sometimes just starting on code, which I preach not to do, but sometimes it's so easy just to start with code, and then I quickly realize, wait a sec, what WTF? Like if you've ever read the book Clean Code or Code Complete,
I have it.
Clean Code. So there's a diagram in there that says they rate their frustration or their productivity in the number of WTFs per minute. And I love that. Yeah, it's clean code, right? Clean code, yeah. And I'm like, that's a great way of looking at it. So that changed my approach. And this is something that we tried teaching over at 1150. I don't know if they still do, but changing it from teaching you to write code and starting with code, that after you have the basics, because you need to understand logic to write code. So, and if you don't understand logic, you're not going to get code. I mean, it's not going to be your thing. If you're not okay with failure, you won't like coding because you fail all the time. And it's the only career I know where you get paid to fail. You fail all the time because you're always building stuff from scratch. It doesn't exist.
Sounds about right.
So now I start from the outside and go in. And I write interfaces first and abstract thinking, like the services, etc. Build mocks of how the services would work in a perfect world. And then I wire all that stuff together. And as long as I follow my mocks and I think abstractly about things, I can very easily change my software to work any way I want because I'm just changing interfaces. If I change the interface, it breaks the whole app. which is great because it forces me to refactor the entire app rather than this version of the same function that's copied and pasted 7 times. And it's easier. Like I write, I look at the requirements that I've built, and I build the interfaces that represent the machinery that would put those requirements to good use. And then once I've got that all mapped out, that's when I start doing the implementation. And the cool thing is, as I write all those interfaces, I put comments in all the interfaces explaining why I'm doing this. And then I can remember why in the world I built this. And that's always helped, because then I can mock things up. I could do a very quick visual functional prototype that isn't tied to anything real, just sends me data, follows the interfaces. I can give that to the customer relatively quickly and go, does this work the way you're thinking? I haven't really hard coded any business rules yet. I'm just following my abstract thinking. It's total happy path. And if that works great for you, now I can start tightening it up. I can fill in the details. Because you don't give a shit about my code. If you're a customer, you don't care at all about my code. Not at all. You'll never want to see it. That's what you pay me for. You just want it to work. And it should work as flawlessly as possible. I mean, bugs are a thing. Bugs happen. It doesn't matter how good you are, you could have bugs. Doesn't matter how many tests you write, you could have bugs. So, and the bugs might not even be your fault. But if you code to a specification, chances are you getting it wrong and having to make changes later, which that has cost, that has debt, they are significantly decreased. My thought. Well, I think my dog wants to be involved. Lainey, do you have software development advice for everyone? No? Yes? What? Come here, girl. What are you doing? He's like, nope, that's cool. Thanks for coming over, Tim. I appreciate it.
Do you mind if I ask more about you speak a little bit about when you talked about starting with interfaces and things? I find that really interesting. That's something, since I didn't have a traditional path into development. Like I'm really interested. I have a very methodical mind, so when I sit down to code anything, my brain says there's a way that I should be doing this. There's a way that I should be going about doing this, and that's kind of what I miss, not having those fundamental like BSBA and CS pathway. So if you don't mind asking, when you talk a little bit more about that, when you said you start with the interfaces and not worry about the business logic.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I'm talking about coding with intent. So let's say you're building an app that is for finding the nearest food to you. So, the implementation as to how you're going to find the food, the GPS, the location services, whether you'll use a combination of Wi-Fi and GPS, or how you're going to work with things when you're offline, all that stuff at the very beginning doesn't really matter. Really what you need to identify is, what are the capabilities that I need to have? If I was going to find the food that's near me, you can hear my dog drinking her water. Good girl.
Yep, sure can.
If I was trying to find the food that's near me, well, what would I need in order to do that? Well, one, I might need a food finder service. And that food finder service may have capabilities like find food within distance, find supported areas, find whatever. I don't know what. And then in addition to that, let's say I want to have like analytics in my application. Like I wrote in my specification that I have all these capabilities, and one of them is all these, services for working with food, get directions, get types of food, get food quantities, etc. All these things I'm going to have to present. But then I also need to have analytics, like track event, like something happened in the application, like they clicked on something, whatever, or maybe track error. Well, the implementation of those things shouldn't matter. Only the functions exist, or should exist. That service should exist. Those functions should exist, and the type of data that they need to return. And if I code that way, that I go and I build a food finder service interface that has find food, get food types, get nearest restaurants, yeah, all those things. Those are things I'm going to have to do. How I do them, I don't care. I just know that I'm going to have to do it. For analytics, log event, log error. How I'm going to do that doesn't matter. I just know that I'm going to have to do it. And so I'd write those interfaces first. These are the things I need to do. From a high level perspective, these are things I need to do. I don't need to concentrate on the implementation right now. And now what I could do is I could build, knowing what the data is going to be, knowing what functions I'm going to have, I could build mock-ups of those. So I could do something that implements the interface and just returns the data that I may expect. All it does is happy path it. Like if it's supposed to return a list of locations that are the nearest to me, so find food, well, that exercise of returning the data that I'm going to need is going to make me think about how I need to implement this. I don't need to worry about the API implementation. I don't need to worry about the GPS. I don't need to worry about all the details of it. I'm just thinking of a mobile app right now. I just want to know, how would I end up calling this? What data would I need in order to surface it to the application? And through a mix of trial and error, I keep on updating the interface and my data models to get to the point where I feel that it's pretty flexible for what I may want to do. And now what I can do is I can wire up all my UI to these interfaces, like my analytics service and my food finding service, and it returns all the data I need. And then once I have all that stuff working, well, I can go now do a full implementation of the food service. I could go build the API, and then I could build a new version of the food service that implements the same interface, returns actual data this time, but none of the rest of the application has to be wired up differently because it's all following the interface, that contract. And that's huge in importance. If I just started writing code, on some days I'd be working on the API. On other days I'd be working on fixing the business logic. And at the end of the day, or at the end of the month, or at the end of the week, I just have a mess of models and implementations and half-finished stuff. I never actually finished anything. I never got a start on how I'm going to get to my final implementation of everything. Instead, I did everything all at once. Instead of starting with my intent, confirming my intent, surfacing my intent through the UI, and then finally implementing the details. And I found that that's how I could, ship an app in like 3 days. It's a lot easier because I started with my intent rather than the code. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. That was great.
Yeah. The problem with like schools, they teach you to code, they teach it about being a code monkey, and you're judged by the code that you write. Oh, how'd that happen? Automatically unmuting?
And anything that he said included.
There you go. Okay. And I think it's a back-asswards way of approaching code, because projects don't work that way. Why does this thing keep on unmuting? This is really strange.
It would ordinarily be the president of the United States who would do that. So can you tell me what?
I'll just turn the TV off. Don't know how that happened. Who knows? It could be my Vizio. It could be anything. Anyway, you're taught to code. I mean, their job is to teach you how to write programs, and that's okay. And I think it's good that you learn to code and you get the logic in your head and you realize how to take a problem and break it into its constituent parts. But you need to know when to stop and structure your application. Because then what you can do is you can build the pieces of your application. And if you code it with intent, if you set up an agreement with how all the individual components are going to work together first, and then implement the details, those contracts keep the application stable. Those interfaces, once you've implemented it, that's it. It works. It's not 10 different implementations of the same thing. It's you have your interface, you code to that, which is a contract of functionality. This is how functionality will work. You code to that agreement, that contract, and boom, it will always work that way. And it works that way across the entire application. And it's just, and you can always look at things in an abstract fashion because that's how you started. So where in my code does it do this? Well, really, it's really, you can't really have a good pattern that way, right? I mean, it's just, it's spaghetti code at that point. Really, you want nice. I'm a big fan of code that is just very high level, very abstracted, and then you can just follow the implementation and understand why it was implemented that way without even reading the code. You should be able to look at the interface and figure out why was this built this way. Similar how they'll teach you about unit testing, that you should be able to look at the test to see how the code should work. You shouldn't even have to look at the code.
Right. Thank you. These are the things. It's interesting that you say those, because these are the things that when I was in 1150, and it just so happened I kind of linked up with two. One was I already worked as a software developer, and the other one had a BS in computer science, and so those were kind of my two friends during boot camp. And this is the thing that you're talking about is what I noticed the most is what I was missing. Like when I was learning how to code, I was learning how to program where they were basically learning computer science, how to structure things, how to put things together well, how to make them scalable. And so I took classes, so I kind of learned some of these things, but I didn't build like any. Had spent a lot of hours doing it. So now I'm trying to kind of go back and make sure that I understand the type of things that you're talking about, so I can build well-structured code. So thank you.
Yeah. Happy to help. Well, very cool. That's all I got on my fireside chat. Tim, did you have anything to add?
No, you kind of touched on it. I mean, I think the other important thing to keep in mind is the data model.
Yeah.
A lot of people lose sight of that, and it's really data-driven application. It's the meat and potatoes, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
making
thanks.
sure you get the data model right, making sure you take the time to properly structure your database before you end up with, a 400 column table or something crazy like that,
And
Yeah.
there's utilities.
rather than something properly normalized.
So wait, do like people actually use those things that they teach you in college, like UML for designing data structures and databases and all that fun stuff?
Well,
I can count on 2 fingers how many times I've had to look at UML. And I might not use both of them. I have found when it comes to data models, that's a great point, Tim. Go look at like Navicat Data Modeler. And something it lets you do is build out all your entities, like all these tables, if you want to look at them that way, and build the relationships between them so you can visually see how things would work together. And it has the ability to one-click export to SQL Server.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And it's fascinating. Like you can highlight tables, put notes on things. It's very cool. Just very, very visual. I love it.
Definitely have to take a look at that. Unfortunately, I don't have very much experience working with like MySQL or MS SQL. Mostly, what is that one? SQLite. Yeah.
same
Oh
concept.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be,
Mhm.
that. Let's see. Wheels on the go data model. I have that installed on here. Let's see. Navicat. Oh, I do have it on here. Let's see. Let's see if I can load one. I can show you what one of these looks like.
Oh, I've also been told that documentation is one of those things that it's also lacking a lot.
Yeah,
People
that's
don't
common.
document their stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, documentation, is often missing. That's again, there's nothing wrong with pushing for documentation in your projects or making it part of your process that when you're done with whatever you're doing, document everything that was done so people remember what happened later. Um, like, and this is that data modeling I was telling you about. Like
Oh yeah.
an application, I can say here's how it's related.
Yeah, that style of chart looks very familiar.
Yeah, and then what I can do is I can actually say export SQL.
Oh, so does it just
And I can say what format.
creates a query or something to create all that?
Yeah, it just creates
Oh,
the SQL,
nice.
and then it's done. Yeah. I go and I hover over any of these, and it tells me what they're related to. Yeah,
It's really nice.
it's insanely powerful. Now that one, they have a free one now, I guess. This one is like, I don't know, they're between $200 and $400, I think. But I mean, you just use it once and you've made your money back because you've saved so much time moving things around. And the cool thing is that you're visualizing everything. And even in with .NET, you can there's a command line utility that'll build all the models for you, all the entities for Entity Framework, right from the command line. So you just point it to a database, and it'll build all the entities with all their relationships already coded in C#.
Wow.
And then you're done. And now you can turn on database migrations, and now you've got your initial database implementation, and every change you make to the models after that is also tracked and automatically updates the database. That's a powerful feature of Entity Framework. But you have to know that those tools exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had no idea that. I could have just used that a few months ago.
Well, it's good. I mean, you should do it the hard way first. If you don't do it the hard way first, you haven't learned anything. That's why, you know, when I was teaching at 1150, we would make people do things the hard way, and then we teach them the really easy way, and there would be much expletives. Because we would spend like a whole day doing things the hard way, and then the next day or later in the afternoon, we'd show how to do it in like 15 minutes.
That sounds like me when I learned about what is it? God, why can't I talk today? I'm having such a hard time. With link and lambda expressions. Like I used to write these massive blocks of code to process through everything, and then I could do it in one line.
Yeah, be careful with that. Link makes everything look easy, and then you find out that it's terrible what it's doing to the database.
Sometimes.
True.
Watch how many times you hit toList.
Oh, yes, I've learned about that. I have learned the dangers of that.
It was so fast, and then I deployed it. Yep. Because you did all that work on your local machine with a local database, and you didn't realize that we started using the basic tier in Azure, that you only have 5 DTUs, and you were pulling in 100,000 records into memory. Why is it so slow?
Yeah.
Anyway. Great. Well, I think this was a good conversation. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I appreciate everything.
Yeah, thank you for hosting it.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll make sure that we put it on our channel, so everyone can see. Well, we'll put it on Meetup, and then it'll be on the playlist that I've got. Great.
Come back next week. Or next month. I hear we're talking about task automation using AWS step functions.
Ooh. Hold on a sec. I'm going to stop recording.